tonight's WineCast is brought to you by Balzac Wine Bar on Milwaukee's East Side. Balzac offers complimentary samples and discounted wines featured on My Wine School's WineCast. So you can go to Balzac's wine page on the MWS or My Wine School website under retailers at the top of the page for more details. So go check them out. They're giving all this great wine away if you come in. So happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I am Jessica Bell. Welcome back if you were here for our WineCast number 16. Everyone say hello to Karen again. We can see her now and actually hear her now too because we have no echo. Hopefully that's continuing into this one as well. And if you want to say hi to Karen, it's real easy. You just type something in under audience on our homepage, which is where we have our conversation. And then you can either log in or sign up. And if you decide to sign up, you just fill in the 5 fields and boom, you are a part of our conversation here. So here we are at WineCast number 17. It's designed for our wine explorers. These are people who love to travel, eat, and drink. So living the good life. And we'll be using some more advanced terminology. So make sure if you get a little lost today, you go back and check out WineCast number 8, where we went over the whole concept of tasting at this level. So we just talked about reading German labels and we started talking about quality wine. So here we're really going to dive into what German quality wine is. There's some really interesting facts about German wine and how they organize it. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to be trying the Monchhof and it's the Mosel Slate Riesling Spatlese. Spate. It rhymes with hate, Spatlese. Okay, that's how, I never get it right. I'm like my mom. Once you say something wrong, she says something the wrong way, she always says it the wrong way, right, Mom? So I'm the same way. Once I say it wrong the first time, I'm just doomed there going forward. So what we're going to be doing today is taking a look at this label that we're trying. So in the last WineCast, someone said, hey, you know, you guys are having the Qualitätswein, but I'm having the Prädikatswein. Well, that is a different wine, and so this is one of the Monchhof's Prädikatswein. So what we've got here is the label for it, and like I said, we already saw one of their labels. And they're very similar, but they got a little different. And that's because German wine is based, they have something different that none of the other EU countries have. And they have a classification system based on ripeness. So how much sugar is in the grapes at harvest. That makes German wine very unusual. And so that sounds very strange. But like we learned back with the French, there's always a reason for it. There's a reason why the Germans said, hey, let's create a classification system that is based on ripeness. Now, it's been criticized a lot since its introduction in 1971, but they had a good reason. The reason is that Germany is really far north. They are at this region in Germany is at 49.9 degrees north latitude. Karen, do you know where we are in Milwaukee or Chicago, the Midwest? We're at 42, okay? So we are a lot further south. So you can imagine how cold it is there. When it's that cold, they were saying, hey, we struggle to get ripeness every year. So therefore, in theory, the more ripe the grapes are, the better quality you have. That was the theory, but it doesn't always happen in reality. So let's go ahead and take a look at these two labels side by side and see what is different when we look at the labels. So like we saw, or like we're seeing now, it's the same producer, Monchhof, okay, is our producer. We're also seeing Riesling on both labels here, so same grape, same name. But then there's 3 words on our new label, which is on the left-hand side, there's 3 new things, right? We've got Mosel on the front label, we've got Slate, and we've got Spatlese, okay? So we talked about the Mosel being one of the furthest north regions in Germany in our last WineCast. So as a review, for you guys who are here, what type of style can you expect from the Mosel? So we just went over this. Anyone who was on the last WineCast, I want to hear from you. I want to know, what kind of style can you expect to see in the Mosel? That's a little review. Make sure you're paying attention and not enjoying these too much. So that's one word that's new. The other is Slate, which thankfully, I love books with pictures, so I love labels with pictures too. And this label for us has a nice picture of what the slate looks like. That rock there is the slate that they're talking about. And we're going to get into talking about the slate in the next WineCast number 18, so stick around for that one. We'll get into it. But what we're going to focus on today is what the Spatlese, you see at the bottom. Here, I've got my nice green arrow for you. You see Spatlese at the bottom there. That is what we're going to focus on today. What does that mean? Where does that come from? But before I inundate you with some pretty bad German pronunciation, I want to see if anyone came in. Did anyone tell me what kind of style?
One person, I think it's Brian. He said light, acidic, low alcohol.
Perfect. Great, Brian. So our Mosel, we know the style. Well, we can guess the style. It's going to usually be on the lighter side with a high acid and low alcohol. Okay, so like I said, before I inundate you with these horribly executed German pronunciations, I want to do a little wine IQ here. So these are a wine interactive question. This is our first one. Why can Germany make fantastic Rieslings at 49.9 degrees north latitude line, but the Midwest, we struggle to produce it? What does Germany benefit from? Do they benefit from A, warmer soils, B, proximity to bodies of water, or C, steeper slopes, or D, all of the above? Now, while you're taking a stab at that, because that's a tough one. I didn't give you the answer to that one yet. But while you're taking a stab at that, I want to emphasize. I say this a lot, but I want to emphasize that the magic zone in the world for making or growing grapevines is 30 to 50 degrees north of the equator and 30 to 50 degrees south of the equator. That said, within that area is where we can make most of our wine. But that said, you can't make wine everywhere in that area. And it just goes to show that latitude isn't everything. There's things we call macroclimates that some people say micro, but micro is more for near the vine. Macro is going to be what is within our immediate surroundings. What is a block kind of radius? That's my own definition, but we'll go with it. So that makes a big difference. And what this wine IQ is testing that bit of knowledge is, what does Germany have that makes it able to make great wines? What are people saying, Karen?
Well, we have a couple B's and one D.
What B's and a D? Well, Dominus Maniac with a D, you're spot on. It is the D, actually. It's all of the above. And the thing is we're going to talk about the warmer soils. They, here in the Mosel, which is super far north, we see a lot of slate soils, which is a warm soil. We're going to talk a lot more about that in the next WineCast. But then the proximity to bodies of water. Now, this is interesting. In Germany, you see most of your wine regions surrounding or hugging the river systems. So that really helps. What that provides is not only airflow, which is going to help fight some of your frost problems, which is going to be a problem that far north, but it's also going to provide slopes, steep slopes that intensify the exposure, which is our steeper slopes. And another thing that's really interesting about Germany, now you think of it, it's really far inland, right, from the Atlantic Ocean. But the Atlantic Ocean still has a moderating effect on it. That's how powerful the Atlantic Ocean is. That ocean current coming up the west coast of Europe is a warm ocean current. And that actually has a little bit of influence still on Germany. Whereas here in the Midwest, we are stuck in a cold continental with, no warm ocean currents to be seen forever around us. So we've got the Great Lakes, but not so much warm lake currents going on in the Great Lakes. So that is, for the most part, the reasons why we're not seeing a lot of Rieslings here in the Midwest. There are some places that can do it. I won't get, this is not today's topic. Oh, I gotta stay on focus, stay on task here. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about those factors in WineCast 18, so stick around for that. But in the last WineCast, we said that when you're looking for quality wine in Germany, you're going to want to look for two different words. Who remembers it? I want you guys to write it in if you remember what those two words, because they're tough. And even, I'm going to give you the answers here. Look at these words and write them in. Okay, that is going to help it stick in your brain. Don't worry. If we want to see everyone writing in right now. You can even practice saying it. Qualitätswein and Prädikatswein. Now, I wouldn't say it based on my German accent, but I mean, it's close. I get close. But go ahead and write them, put them in the chat roll. I swear, this is the way you learn things. With wine, there is so much information. It's all about repetitive exposure. So write it in the chat room. I want to see it, everyone. I'm not seeing anyone come in yet. Are you seeing? Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I think you scolded them into it.
I've shamed you into studying. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to look for. So let's look at this label and see what we're seeing on this label. We got to look for Qualitätswein or Prädikatswein on it, okay? You guys take a look. I'm going to give you a nice close-up, so make it a little easier. There you go. This is actually a Prädikatswein. So the one we just had in WineCast number, 16, was a Qualitätswein, which is technically a lower level than Prädikatswein. So this is technically a higher level. Now, we talked about that. What would we expect to see on this? Well, more intensity, more complexity would be two great places to start looking for quality. Now, as a Prädikatswein in Germany, they have a system that does not exist anywhere else in the EU. And I mentioned it in the last WineCast. It is a system based on ripeness. So how much sugar is in the grapes at harvest. And as a Prädikatswein, it has to put at least one of those 6 levels on the bottle. So what are those 6 different levels? So here you go. I'm gonna, again, do my best with my German here. But these are your 6 levels of Prädikatswein. So one of these has to be on the label somewhere. We've got Kabinett, Spatlese, Auslese, Beerenauslese, Eiswein, and Trockenbeerenauslese. So I've abbreviated a little just because it would cut off my head if I kept going with the Trockenbeerenauslese. Which wouldn't be a bad thing to be choked by TBA, Trockenbeeren. It's like, actually, there was a king in, I think it was in England, who he was put to death, and he got to choose how he could be put to death. And I think he chose Sauterne. It's the same idea, though. He chose to be drowned in Sauterne. So
that's the way
the way to go, right? If you gotta go, I mean, come on. Smart, lucky guy is what we'll say. You know, the royalty get it all. Okay, so this is one of these words we want to look. So let's take a look at the label and look for one of those words. I'm giving you the answer right away. Okay, that was easy, right? So you see, this is actually a Spatlese. Okay, so now what does that mean when it's a Spatlese? Well, each of these 6 different levels is going to have different attributes. So what we're seeing is from a Kabinett to down to a Trockenbeerenauslese, we're seeing increasing levels of what they call must weight. That's the technical word. Must weight is really how much sugar is in the grapes. So what we want to do is see how much sugar is in each of these levels are going to have different minimum amounts of sugar in order to guarantee a certain level of quality. Because in a region that's so far north and it's so cold, in theory, the riper it is, the more flavor, the more quality you're going to get on the wine. So they're saying, okay, if it has more sugar, well, that also means it's going to have more flavor. In theory, it was a good theory, okay? In practice, it doesn't always happen, and it's difficult sometimes to know what the style is. So I mentioned we expect higher quality, but is it going to be sweet or dry? Is it going to be on the sweeter side or the drier side? That's difficult to know because with increasing levels of sugar, that sugar's got to go somewhere. It's either going to go into the alcohol or into the sugar. So it's either going to be higher sugar and or higher alcohol as you go down the list. I'm going to get more specific with each of these in just a second. So we saw with this one, we are looking at a Spatlese. Now let's actually look at the wine and see how this Spatlese compares to the Qualitätswein, which is, one level above, well, I should say below the Kabinett. You got Prädikatswein is higher and Qualitätswein is lower. So we've got, I've got the 2 wines here. You can just even see, here, let me get a better screenshot for you. Yeah, get rid of all that German stuff. Okay, take a look. This one over here, I can't wave it too much, but the one over here is my Spatlese, and this one is my Qualitätswein. You can see on the camera for once. You can finally see on the camera a difference. What are you guys seeing on yours? What would you say about the Spatlese? Is it different? What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, I think it's got a kind of a deeper golden hue to it.
Yeah, definitely. So we're seeing a deeper hue, and that's very common because the grapes are getting riper. And as such, they are, as they get riper, the grape skins actually sometimes take on more color. And you get more sugar too. So more sugar often will lead to a darker color. So let's go ahead and smell the wine and see if we see any differences between the wine that we had, the Prädikatswein that we had in the last WineCast and this one. Now, while you're doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about Spatlese. So back in the 18th century, people could not harvest until they were told to do so. So in 1775, the story goes, in the Rheingau, the guy who was supposed to announce that it was time to harvest was late. He was like 2 weeks late. Who knows? Maybe he was like in some tavern drinking Riesling or something. Who knows what happened to him, right? I'm sure he said he got robbed or something. That's not what all the stories say, but we know the truth. He got there 2 weeks late. So of course everyone just waited and waited. You know, they was like, we gotta wait for the guy. And so they waited 2 weeks, and they didn't think anything of it really. Like, we're just gonna harvest now. Well, then when the wines were made, they were awesome. They were really good, and they thought, well, this is actually a good idea. Let's, harvest some of the grapes when we normally would, but then let's wait 2 weeks. And so Spatlese actually literally means late harvest. And that's why we get this different style. You get more sugar because you wait a little longer and the fruit can get riper. So it's interesting because as early as 1778, so just 3 years later, our lush, the third president, who was our, a lush of a president, Thomas Jefferson, he loved wine. He, by 1778, was telling his friends that, check this stuff out. Check out this late harvest stuff from Germany. So it did not take long for people to appreciate and enjoy this wine. So what are we seeing, Karen, for the nose? What are people thinking?
Yeah, not too much yet. Someone just said it smells richer.
Smells richer, exactly. Well, Kim, that's perfect. Smells richer. What you're seeing is more intensity, right? You're seeing more depth, more complexity. That, hopefully, is what we get as we go up in quality, which also means we're going to go up in price. So if we're paying more, we want to get more out of our wine. Another thing that I got a lot on this wine were things like apricot. Okay, so that's dried fruit. That shows ripeness. I also got tropical fruits like mango and pineapple. That, again, is showing this riper texture. I also got a lot of rock, but real clean rock. If you go back to the Prädikatswein we had, it was kind of a dirtier rock. So this is like a really clean rock. And then this one's really known for is like a vanilla cream. And I think, Kim, you probably hit it on the nose with that, is that it smells richer. It's just rich wine. Like vanilla ice cream I get on this one a lot. So you can actually smell the difference now between, say, a Prädikatswein and a Prädikatswein, specifically the Spatlese. Whereas the Prädikatswein, we saw lots of just simple fruit, lime and green fruit on there. So let's go ahead and take a sip and see what we can find out on the palate, okay? Go ahead, and you're gonna be in for a surprise with the sweetness levels. I want you guys to think about what you are tasting in terms of sweetness. Usually we're like, oh, it's dry, move on. But no, this one's sweetness. I want you to think about sweetness, body, and acid. Now, while you do that, let me just give you some insight on these different levels of Prädikatswein. So we start off with the cabinet. It's going to be what we said. It's the lowest level of minimum sugar required. So what these usually are our lightest, simplest Prädikatswein. So it's all these wines here, it's the lightest, the simplest, and it can be dry or sweet. Use the tool we used in the last wine tasting to judge. So if it's 8 to 10% and it's a cabinet, it's probably going to have some sweetness on it. If it's 10 to 11, you're kind of on the fence there. Once you get to 11, 12%, that cabinet is going to be dry, if it could even get up to that. Now the next one we just talked about, Spatlese, it is a late harvest, right? So what we've got going on with the late harvest is more flavor, dried fruit, tropical fruit. And then this one is usually going to be sweeter than your cabinet, but it can also be dry, and that's a decision of the winemaker. But in order to get a dry Spatlese, you've got to get at least a 12%. So keep that in mind. If you're at 10% with a Spatlese, pretty much you can be assured that that's a sweet wine. Okay, it's going to get up to at least 12 or 13 before you get to a dry, and that takes talent on the end of the grapes. You have got to have some fully flavored wines to have a 13% alcohol wine on a Riesling. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much, but the next thing is Auslese. Auslese means special harvest, so it's usually done at around the same time as the Spatlese, but they're looking for special grapes. These grapes are especially dried out, especially not really raisinated. We'll get to that, but they're really ripe grapes, and these are almost always sweet, but technically, legally, they can be dry. Now, the next one down the list, Bieren Auslese, that actually means Bieren is going to be the berry is specially harvested, okay? And so this means they're going to actually pick berry by berry with this. And often, by the time you get to Bieren Auslese, this is sweet. This is always going to be sweet. And why we get to sweet ones is because these grapes are becoming raisin-like, if they're not already raisin-like. And they have something on it called noble rot. Now, to me, that sounds like an oxymoron. Rot sounds like a bad thing. Noble sounds like a good thing, right? Well, in the world of wine, in the world of grapes, when you want this rot, it's noble rot. When you don't want it, it's called gray rot. But what it does is it takes grapes that are, normally full, and it raisinates them, and even adds some extra favorable flavors too. So what you get is these really concentrated grapes that make really concentrated grape juice, which in turn makes really concentrated wines. So Bieren Auslese is almost always, it's always sweet, and it's BA is the abbreviation. Eiswein is the same levels of sweetness as a Bieren Auslese, or I should say the same levels of minimum sugar at harvest. But it's you get to that sweetness in a different way. They let the grapes sit on the vine until, say, January sometimes, and that cold climate, -8 degrees, is going to actually allow some of the water to crystallize, and you can take it out of the grapes. So then now again you have this really concentrated, pure grape juice. And then finally, Trockenbeeren Auslese is, raisinated grape, all noble rot. It's only done in the best years, tiny bottles usually because it's super expensive. That's why I said if I had to go, Trockenbeeren Auslese would probably be one of the ways it would be. I'm with that king, smart guy. Okay, so Karen, anyone writing in about body, acid, or alcohol, or any of those things?
Well, Christine says that it melts in her mouth almost.
Yeah.
And Kim agrees with the apricot and ripe fruit notes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's, what you're getting on here is this is actually what we call a medium sweet wine. So if you want an example of medium sweet, we're at it now. And this one, I think it had like 70 grams per liter. Don't quote me on that I'm just getting off the top of my head there. But so yeah, it's got a lot of sugar, but it's got even more acid. So it comes across sweet, but it's not cloyingly sweet because we got really high acid. So high acid, high sugar, we'll say medium sweet sugar or sweetness. And then body, you get a medium plus body. Now you're getting some unctuous wine, some big wine. So really interesting wine here. Now, we are getting to the end here. We are going to have to sign off so we can sign back on and talk about what are we doing next? We're doing more Riesling, right? So what we're going to be doing with this next Riesling is talking about soils and sites in the Mosel. So we're really going to get down and dirty, literally. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but I'd love to know what you guys think about the wine. So let me know. And then, of course, how would you pair this one differently from the Prädikatswein, right? What would you do differently with this one? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Karen, do you have any thoughts? What would you do this one with?
This would go well with a couple nice cheeses, I think, like a creamy blue or a mild triple cream. Mm-hmm. Going back to the spice, I think it would go nice with a light Thai coconut curry.
Definitely, yeah. These are really great cheese wines, without a doubt. Any kind of food that has a lot of sweetness in it. So anything like, if you have a food that has like an orange marmalade in it somehow, or something with really strong fruit flavors, this would go really nicely. Also foie gras.
I was just gonna say foie gras.
Yeah, we were thinking here, but like foie gras. So yeah, so that high acid, the sugar with the saltiness on the foie, the oiliness. This has that body and that creaminess to go with the oiliness on a foie. So yeah, so lots of different things. This is definitely a very food-friendly wine. This one is a little bit more expensive, but I'd buy it again. This is $21 to $24. And the reason I'd buy it again, because this one can age. This one, I think, can easily age 7 to 10 years. For me, it's how I like my wine. So, you know what's interesting? What will happen to this wine is that sweetness, the amount of sugar will not change, but the perception of sugar will change. This wine will be, you'll perceive it as drier in, say, 5 years from now. What happens is it becomes more integrated into the wine. And it's just an interesting phenomenon. They don't really know why that happens. I've asked some Riesling experts, the Riesling expert, the guy from Pacific Rim, Randall Graham. I've asked him, why does this happen? And he has no idea. So all we can talk about is real world experiences and what we see, but we see that. So get a bottle of this, keep it for 5 years and try it, and come back to me in 5 years. But hopefully I'm right. Okay, so that's all for now. We're going to be coming back in about 5 minutes and talking about the sites and soils of the Mosel. I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School, where it is wine your way.